Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. Today we're talking Halloween 4.
10 years ago, on the night of October 31st, a small Midwestern town fell victim to an escaped killer. Under the cover of darkness, he carried out the most horrifying mass murder on record. 16 people in cold blood. Ever since that night, no one has forgotten his name. And Halloween has never been the same.
Alright guys, so spooky season is officially here. I mean, technically it started at the beginning of September. That's when I say, the Halloween season officially starts. But now we are, the first day of fall is tomorrow. So excited, and I couldn't think of a better film to kick off the holiday season, you would say, for us Halloween fans than Halloween 4. You might be like, why are you starting with 4? Why aren't you going to do the original film first? And I am going to talk about the original film eventually. I'm going to do the whole Halloween series eventually. But Halloween 4 holds a special place in my heart. I would say out of the whole series, obviously number one's a classic, but I would say out of the whole series, I probably have seen Halloween 4 the most. And, part of that has to do with, I would say, a lot of nostalgia, growing up. 4 and 5 were always on AMC Fear Fest every single year. So, I've seen these movies, on TV basically every single year because even though I own them now, I've had them on DVD, have them on Blu-ray, 4K. Even though I've had these films, every time they come on, I always, sit down and watch. At the very least, they're on the background. So I've seen, 4 a ton of times, and it's just one of my favorite films out of the series. So I wanted to kind of start off by talking about this movie. So just a heads up, if you guys, for some reason, if you've never seen Halloween 4, this is going to have some spoilers in it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about this movie. So Halloween 4, again, for those who haven't seen it, it takes place 10 years after the original film. Michael Myers is back, and this time he's after Jamie, which is Laurie's daughter. So first off, guys, we have to talk about the opening to this film. My God, it might be, it's tough, but it might be my favorite opening from the series. Just because, and again, I know the first one, you have the classic opening with Michael and everything. But with part 4, the way it opens up and you just get instantly put right into, that fall atmosphere. Just the shots of, what you see, it's you can just feel that you're in this the Midwest little town. It's breezy, it's a crisp fall day. You see the ghosts blowing around. You see the different shots with the scarecrows and things like that. And my God, guys, it just instantly puts you in that fall mood. So one of the reasons why I absolutely love the opening of this film, I can't think of many horror films that just instantly put you into that, that atmosphere where you feel you're right there. And this is definitely one of them. After the opening scene, we see these doctors, they're going to pick Michael Myers up because, in part 2, he was, blown up with Loomis. And so he's he's badly burned. You see him, he's all bandaged up and everything. So they're going to pick him up. And I love when the doctors, when they go in, they're at they're talking to the security guard at the front. And I can't think of the actor's name, but he's been in a bunch of stuff. He's a great, character actor. But he just has some great lines. He gives us some exposition to kind of catch the fans up, at this point in the series. If you guys, it's been a little while, so this is kind of what's happened. And I just love some of his lines that he delivers where you hear someone scream and the one doctor's Jesus. And the guy just grabs him by the shoulder and he's Jesus ain't got nothing to do with this place. And just great lines like that, classic 80s horror, just cheesy lines that I absolutely love. After, the doctors are talking about Michael and stuff like that, they load him up, they take him outside. It's a rainy, night. So you just get, again, just that great atmosphere, and the Halloween theme music kicks on and you see him, taking him out to the ambulance. They load him in, and as they're leaving, we hear, or the doctors, they're talking in the ambulance about Michael, and they mention Jamie, which is, his niece that he's never seen. But as soon as they mention that, we see like, he reacts to it and he's like, well, I'm about to fuck shit up right now. And, shortly after the guy like says that, we get the infamous thumb to the forehead scene, which is, this movie is filled with some pretty, like creative like deaths. So that's definitely like one of the standouts for sure. The thumb to the forehead, and then he just starts like smashing that guy's head against the door. So pretty, crazy opening as far as like the film goes. With Halloween 4, the return of Michael Myers, we also get the return of Dr. Loomis. We see him and he's all burned up from part 2 as well. He's got like scars like on his face and like on his hands and stuff like that. And we get some amazing scenes in this film, with Dr. Loomis. I almost said Donald Pleasance. Yes, Donald Pleasance does, he has some great scenes in this film as Dr. Loomis. Like, he goes to the place where they transported Michael from, and he's like, oh, like, why wasn't I notified? They end up finding out that there was an accident with the ambulance, and, sure enough, Loomis is like, yep, I already know what happened. And so they go to the crime scene. We see, the ambulance, there's blood like everywhere, like bodies were just like all like chewed up and everything. And Loomis knows exactly what's going on like at this point. You can't like fool him. And he has like this great line, which I'm probably not going to get it like exactly right. But he has like this, this great line where he says like to the doctor and like the police officer, they're like, oh, like where are you headed? And he's like, Haddonfield. He's like, if you don't find him in 4 hours, I'm sure I will. Just like, lines like that, only, Donald Pleasance could deliver, and just so many, more throughout the film as well. He also has, there's a gas station scene where, he goes to get gas for, like, his car, and when he gets there, he finds, like, the mechanic that Michael ends up killing and stealing, like, his, his suit. So he ends up finding that guy. He ends up finding that there's, like, someone, like, dead in the front, like, where, it's like a little, like, diner or whatever, so he finds someone dead there. And then he confronts Michael because he sees him in like the doorway. And I love that doorway shot where the camera kind of like zooms in. Really, really, great work as far as like the camera work goes there. And he's talking to Michael Myers, and he's like, oh, if you want another victim, take me, leave these people alone. And then, when Michael doesn't like respond, he does the infamous, God damn you, and he shoots at him. The weird thing is that Michael just like disappears like somehow, which is really kind of strange, but hey, like I'm not complaining. And after he shoots at him, like Michael like takes off, he disappears, and Loomis, he's like, Michael! And then Michael ends up coming out with like a car. The gas station ends up like getting blown up, and so Loomis is without a car. And it's like, like right after this, we get another great scene with Loomis. So he's like, he's walking along the road, and you see like these, these teenagers with like a car, they like pull up and they're like, come on, old man, or whatever. And as he gets close, they leave him in the dust. I'm like, you know what? Fuck you guys. I hope Michael Myers kills you. Like, that's Dr. Loomis. Show him some damn respect. So right after that, though, we get the infamous preacher scene. So, Loomis is sitting there in the dust, and he's just like, what the fuck, man? The shit that I do for these people. And then we see this old beat-up truck pull up, and it's, it's the preacher. And he's like, come on, man, old man, I ain't got time till Judgment Day, or something along that.
Get it in gear, old man. I ain't got till Judgment Day.
And we just had this great interaction between these two characters, and I can't think of the guy, the guy who played like the preacher, but he was amazing. Just like the back and forth about like hunting evil, and just like how Loomis equates that. He thinks he's kind of like talking about like Michael Myers, and they just have a great conversation there. And at the end, he like offers him a drink, and he takes a swig, and he starts like singing or whatever, and Loomis just like looks over and he smiles at him. I absolutely just love that whole interaction between those two characters. We also, as I mentioned kind of earlier in the review, we get introduced to Jamie in this film, played by Danielle Harris. And, she is the daughter of Laurie, which, we find out in this movie that she was killed in like a car accident, which is kind of lame. I know they probably didn't really have a lot to work with because they couldn't get Jamie to come back. Or Jamie Lee Curtis. They couldn't get her to come back, so they kind of had to write her off like in some way. But it's like, oh, really? Like after all that, she died in a car accident. But anyways, so, we get introduced to her character, and like, early on in the film, we see her like in her house, and she's getting ready to go to bed, and she like sees like the ambulance outside, which is kind of strange. But she goes to bed and she has a nightmare about like Michael Myers, where she's saying like her prayers before she goes to sleep, and then all of a sudden like these arms come out and grab her and start pulling her underneath the bed, which I've always thought that was kind of creepy, because I know like for me growing up as a kid, you were always kind of terrified like something was going to grab you from underneath your bed. So that kind of played with that fear a little bit. So I always thought that scene was was pretty cool. And then like Michael like wakes up on the side of the bed, and he looks at her. She goes to run. He's at like the doorway and comes in. So I really I like that whole scene, even though it doesn't really make sense, because up to this point, she hasn't seen what Michael Myers, looks like with a mask or anything like that. But I do like just like kind of the creepiness of that whole scene. And that's one of the things about Halloween 4, I think, like why I enjoy this film as much as I do, because there's a lot of really, good characters in this movie. Great cast overall. One of the other characters that we get introduced to is Rachel, which is Jamie's like older sister, stepsister, and she kind of comes off a little bitchy in the beginning, because she's like, oh, I have to like babysit, and Jamie's all upset about that. But by the end of the movie, you do really like her character, and she's like one of the most beloved characters like in the Halloween series, at least from like what I can tell, with fans. You also have Brady, who, he's kind of like a douchey like character like overall, because, he kind of ends up, when Rachel ends up canceling plans with him because she has to babysit, he just kind of moves on to the next best thing. So, he's kind of like a little bit of a douchey character, but he does have the great scene where they're all working at like the drug like store or whatever. And one of his friends, Wade, he's like trying on these like sunglasses in the mirror, and they're like, come on, like, I dare you to go like ask her out or whatever. I bet you won't do it. And he's like, oh, like timing's gotta be primo.
Hey, Wade, why don't you go ahead and make your move?
Don't rush me, Brady. Timing's got to be primo.
And then they're like, oh, like, they put down like some like more money, and they're like, you won't do it. You're afraid of like, her father with Sheriff Meeker. And he like looks at him and he's like, her daddy don't scare me. So he goes over and he like, he goes to like clear his throat or whatever. And she just turns around and goes, fuck off, Wade. Such a hilarious scene. I absolutely love that scene.
Don't forget, man, she's Sheriff Meeker's daughter.
Her daddy don't scare me.
Fuck off, Wade.
And then Brady, later on in the film, when Michael Myers is, going after, trying to get to like Jamie and going after everyone like in the house later on, he ends up getting a really, really cool, death scene where he tries to take Michael Myers one-on-one, and it's like, damn, dude, like, I mean, I know you're nervous because, like, Michael Myers is coming up the stairs, but, like, you couldn't get the bullets in that gun a little bit faster. So he tries to, he, like, swings the gun on him. Michael, like, throws that away. And then he tries, he punches him, and he does get a hit on him. But then, he tries again. Michael grabs him, picks him up in the air, and he just takes his hand and just like puts his like thumbs like into his face, and you just hear like the cracking and stuff like that, and you're just like, ooh, like that definitely must have hurt. So he just like crushes his face. And then you also have, like I said, Sheriff Meeker, who Loomis ends up finding out that he has replaced Brackett when he goes to find him to see who's like the new sheriff in town. He finds out that it's Meeker now. And just that, I love that he doesn't take any shit, and he instantly, it takes like a second to like convince him, but he's like instantly right there. Like Loomis shows up and he's like, okay, like what do we have to do to prevent, what happened like 10 years ago? So he's already, you don't have to convince him to like, believe like what's going on. He's like, yeah, let's go. And I just love the chemistry between, him and Donald Pleasance in this film. They have some, some like great back and forth with each other throughout the movie as well. And I know I said to start off like this review that the opening is absolutely amazing as far as like creating that fall atmosphere. But I mean, as far as just like the film as a whole, my God, like you watch this movie and you're just like instantly in that fall, like Halloween mood, because just, between like the opening, but like later on in the film, you see the kids getting ready to start going like trick-or-treating, and you just like, there's a lot of scenes where it's, it's like, misty and foggy and stuff like that. You see like the kids like TPing houses, and it's just like out of the whole series, I think overall, this might be the film to me that feels the most like a true Halloween atmosphere to like the film. And I'm sure some of you guys like might like disagree. Like you might say like, like part one. But to me, I don't know, that vibe is just so strong in Halloween Part 4. I also love, there's a group of these like redneck characters that we end up meeting at one point in this film, when shit's starting to hit the fan and like, the powers like went out, and you see like, well, actually before the power goes out, they're all at like this bar and they're telling people to go inside, lock their doors, and they try calling the police station and no one answers, and they're like, ain't no way no one answers at a police station. So they all get in the cars and show up at the police station after, we find out what Michael's done to the police station, and there's bodies everywhere. So you get this, this great scene where they show up and Loomis is like, it was Michael Myers. He's come back to kill. And, that gets them all like amped up and ready to go because of how many, people like died 10 years ago. And, Sheriff Meeker is just like, leave it to the police or whatever. And basically, Loomis creates a lynch mob, as like, Meeker says. He's like, you created a lynch mob. And Loomis has the great line back to him. And he goes, you don't have a police force.
Well, not this time, Ben. I'll handle this my own way. We're gonna fry his ass. Son of a bitch, you just created a lynch mob.
You haven't got a police force.
Just like I said, great chemistry between those two characters. But I really liked the idea of having, these group of people, these rednecks going after Michael Myers. And it's kind of a preview of, I think, what we're going to get with Halloween Kills, kind of that like mob mentality. This time, obviously, it's going to be on a whole new level with like the town going after him. But I like that we kind of got a little glimpse of that in Halloween 4. And this movie has, like, I've already mentioned, like, some of them, but it has some really great, like, death scenes as far as, the one where, with, like, Brady, where he gets, like, his face crushed. You also have, like, the guy in the ambulance who gets, like, the thumb pressed through his forehead, and then he just gets, like, slammed against the wall. So overall, Michael Myers, I think, he was, like, probably the most, like, brutal he's really been up to this point in the series. And as far as the ending of this film, man, I remember the first time watching it, and it really shocked me because I was just like, what the hell happened? Like, obviously, maybe kind of derailed the series as it kind of like went along, but it really shocked me the first time like I saw it. So overall, like I think it is a good ending. Maybe didn't set up the rest of the series like in the best way, but I thought it was cool, for the time, like first time watching it, and even if you're almost watching it as like its own thing. So I thought like the ending was pretty like well done. The only things that I really didn't like about this film were the mask. Man, if they would have got the mask right in this film, like it would be, I mean, it is still like really like right close up there with like, the first one, like for me, but if they got that mask right, like holy shit, like this would just be like a whole nother level. The mask is definitely not the best, and like there's times where they have like different masks, because I know they had all kinds of like issues in the film where there was like some pink ones accidentally like sent to them and they used those by accident. A lot of like weird things that happened in this film with the mask. So I wish that they would have gotten that right. And just the way that Michael moves at times, he's a little stiff in the movie. So like, yeah, his movements, he kind of just seems like he's like, he's walking almost like a robot. But those are like really like my only nitpicks with the film. Outside of that, I absolutely, if you guys can't tell, I absolutely love Halloween 4. Personally for me, and maybe I'm like rating it a little bit high, but I give it a 9 out of 10. I've seen this movie so many times. I absolutely love it. It's something that is a must watch for me every Halloween season. If you guys haven't seen it, which, spoilers at this point, but if you haven't seen it, it's definitely one that I recommend, checking out for sure in the Halloween series. So yeah, I want to hear what your guys' thoughts are on Halloween 4. Have you seen the film? Where does it rank as far as like the rest of the Halloween franchise for you? And what is your favorite Halloween sequel up to this point? Obviously, so sequel, and it can include any of like the films like up to this point, even like the new saga, the Rob Zombie films, like whatever. Let me know down below in the comments. And if you guys are new to the channel, as always, please hit that subscribe button as well as the bell button next to it. That way you get notifications for all my new videos. Please give this video a thumbs up. And as always, guys, please make sure to check back for more Pop Culture with Pat, because I got a lot more spooky coming for you this year.